times I like to do videos that are outside of the norm. And I know it's draft season, it's playoffs right now. A lot of exciting things are going on. Minnesota gets back in the game with a huge win back at home, which they generally say the series doesn't start until somebody loses at home. Um, Indiana Pacers are headed actually back home, up 2-0. Crazy to think about. But there's also a lot of other things going on because for a lot of other teams, this is their off season already. This is the point in which they are evaluating their roster. They're evaluating their team structure, systems. And one of the teams that I wanted to dive in on today was actually a team that I have been out on for a minute. And when I say out on, I mean I just didn't even really follow them. They're one of those franchises that, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't necessarily always believe in curses, but then sometimes I kind of do. And some franchises' calamity seems to be so consistent. It almost seems like there's something that's just on them. That's just something that's just not letting them achieve anything greater than what they have really ever. Like Pelicans can't get out of the first round at best. At best. They can't seem to keep from tripping over their own feet, having injuries, um, guys not being able to develop, uh, or guys not feeling like they can even win there. If I'm honest with you, when it comes to New Orleans Pelicans, they're one of those franchises. I'm not going to act like I follow them like I do the Pistons or other teams, right? The Warriors in my backyard, or teams I'm also excited about, like the Houston Rockets and things like that. The New Orleans Pelicans have had a major issue when it comes to the identity and the culture of their team. And a lot of that has been centered around the drafting of Zion Williamson, that they drafted a talent that was undeniable. And yet they did not accept what that talent was and what it wasn't. He's almost like, I don't want to say Andrew Wiggins. Uh, I'll put it this way. Zion is the guy that you love to play with, but you don't want to have to depend upon. Because Zion is the type of player that, because he's so talented, he understands that the level of work he has to put in to be effective is minimal. But his perspective of what's effective isn't necessarily best for what the team needs to be able to win. Now, we all know that has been that Zion Williamson needs to lose the weight, and that's overstated. It's overstated. At this point, I stopped caring a couple seasons ago. I said until he gets down to about 250 pounds, which Charles Barkley gave him the blueprint from day one, gave him the blueprint, and he was like, nah, I'm cool. So for me, it's like, oh, okay, well, until you grow up, I'm not going to take you seriously. Even though you have some exciting highlights and stuff like that, it's like, all right, but y'all not going to win. And I refer to that as disrespecting the game. I refer to that as disrespecting the game. I'm a competitor at heart. Um, and I love guys who compete. I love guys who are passionate about the sport and what they do with their lives. And he's just not somebody who appears to be that. Um, but I think that there's a solution. And for me, it's constantly been you have to build around Zion while also building without Zion. And that's tricky. And I thought it was a little bit concerning that they fired David Griffin, I believe, their team president. I didn't really think that it was his fault. Like, it's a terrible situation when you draft a guy number one who can't stay healthy, when your best players can't stay healthy. I mean, they have just been constantly, repeatedly riddled with injuries. And I don't know if it's something in the water. I don't know if it's something within the organization. There's a hex on them or what. Sometimes people do shady stuff. I don't know. Maybe they built the stadium on a ancient indigenous burial ground. I don't know. All I do know is that the New Orleans Pelicans have been in the mud for a long time, but I think there's a solution. And it comes in the form of one Collin Murray-Boyles. You know, when you think about the game of basketball, I think a lot of times people get really caught up in offense, but they don't necessarily understand what makes offense tick, what allows for players to play at a certain level, what allows for a team or an offense or a system to run at a high level, right? Like a lot of people, it's obvious when they look at a Draymond Green and they go, oh, he's valuable offensively because he does this. But you see it now because he's got Stephen Curry around him. But I can tell you how many other Draymond esque players have been in the league for a long time. Yeah, guys like Anthony Mason, who was a facilitator, point forward at the power forward position, 250, 260 pounds, lefty, right? Had a nice little pull up J from about 16 to 18 feet above the free throw line, right? But you have guys who are able to facilitate, who are able to defend with versatility, be the anchor of your defense, and just an overall highly skilled player, but not necessarily someone who wows you, who is going to dunk on everybody or is going to take over games with his scoring. You know, when I look at the contrast between a Collin Murray-Boyles and a Zion Williamson, the reason why I called him the anti-Zion is because he does everything almost completely different, and yet he has so many of the overlapping same skill sets that this team needs. I'm going to start off with where they're different. Athletically, different worlds. We all know Zion is of the point few. He's lost some of that due to the injuries over the years. Uh, and at the same time, he's still an incredible athlete. His agility, his balance, his core strength to be able to absorb contact and still finish with touch. Uh, all these things are what make him an incredible athletic talent. Colin Murray Boyles is similar to Zion in the agility and the footwork and the balance and the touch, just not the vertical pop. So he's not the type of athlete who's going uh, to blow you off your television screen. Colin Murray Boyles is never going to be the guy who takes over a game from the top of the key and says, everybody just follow me. I'm going to lead us to victory. That's not him. That's not him. But it doesn't need to be. And that's where I'm going with this video is that who Colin Murray Boyles is a guy who does everything else that allows you to win. When you think about a Draymond Green-esque player, Draymond Green does so many things, especially when he was younger, early on in the dynasty run. He did so many things, whether it was talking on defense, a switchable defender, someone who could be relied upon as a help defender, had good length, rebounded extremely well. His low center of gravity almost allowed him to neutralize many other bigs, all-star level bigs. I'm talking about the Blake Griffins, the Domantas Sabonises, Alperen Şengün. Draymond Green has such versatility as a defender that he's able to do things that you would not think at 6'6" he should be able to do. Similarly, Colin Murray Boyles at 6'6" and a half, barefoot. So he's about 6'8" with shoes and about a 7-foot wingspan, a little over 7 feet. He is able to be a tremendous positional defender and help defender. He understands exactly where to be on the court. Complete difference than a Zion Williamson. Zion, who many times is getting lost on defense, generally saving his energy for offense. Collin Murray-Boyles, or CMB, as I heard somebody put it for short, seems to always know where to be. His ability to anticipate, his ability to move his feet, to utilize his length, to be able to neutralize guards trying to get downhill while also showing on the pick and roll. He does so many things effectively defensively that I think what he is going to be able to provide for the New Orleans Pelicans is an anchor on the interior defensively. Now, I know you have Yves Missy, but Yves Missy, he has a very high center of gravity, meaning that he's not necessarily somebody who's going to be able to get up under you and to be a dominant physical force. He usually, his best attributes are in his vertical athleticism around the rim. He rebounds the ball well enough, and he can defend the rim, score above the rim, and things like that. However, sometimes you need a guy who can just physically hold his own on the block. When you think about bigs like Aaron Gordon, think about guys like even Nikola Jokic. You have bigs like Julius Randle, Nas Reed, all in the playoffs right now. You have a lot of bigs that you need somebody sturdy and physical to be able to keep them out the paint, to be able to move their feet laterally while still having the lower body strength to be able to keep them from just bowling over your defender. Now, one of the things that I can say that I have observed about the New Orleans Pelicans is that they're a pretty, what old school players might call light in the pants team. Light in the pants team, meaning that guys might play hard, but man, they might fall over with a strong gust of wind. These guys, Trey Murphy the third, well, he's 6'9", 210, 215, right? Herb Jones, phenomenal defender, uh, 6'6", 6'7", and he's like 210, right? You got guys like DeJounte Murray, 6'5", 185 pounds, right? This is really thin team. And outside of Kelly Olynyk, but nobody's looking at him like a physical presence, or Zion Williamson. They don't really necessarily have that guy with girth to be able to play a physical brand of basketball. And when you look at the playoffs right now, look at just how physical the basketball is. It is incredibly physical. Now, as a side note, I do anticipate eventually when the NBA expands, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies will probably be pushed into the Eastern Conference. I'm not mad at that. I think it's a solid move. Reopening franchises in Seattle and more than likely Las Vegas. That's going to be a tremendous jump for the NBA. And also, I think it'll help both those franchises have an opportunity to win more moving into the Eastern Conference. But let me say this: when it comes to winning, you have to have an outlook, a mindset of fundamentally what allows you to win. You can't skip steps. You can't have a great offensive talent and not have a good defense, right? It's almost like having a phenomenal quarterback, but you have no O line to protect them. And so you're always limited in what they're able to produce. Now, I know I don't want to compare it too much to the NFL and football because I just think those owners don't care. They're going to make money no matter what. But theoretically, if you have a phenomenal quarterback, you would want to have a great offensive line. You would want to have a great defensive line so you can make sure you control that line so that your defense behind you is able to play their positions maximally. Similarly, every team in basketball in the NBA needs someone on the interior that they can rely upon to get rebounds, to communicate, because you're generally on the back line, you're closer to the basket, further away from the perimeter, so you can see more going on in front of you. So you need someone who can actually communicate to the wings and the guards, screens and things of that nature, show and do a lot of the little dirty things. And when I say dirty things, I mean the things like hedging on a screen, being physical up on the screener who's coming up the screen, right? Not allowing them to set it well so that your guard has opportunity to get over the top. You need a guy who's going to box out physically to ensure that you get the defensive rebound, right? Just ask the Indiana Pacers how important that is. You need somebody who can clear that rebound. You need somebody who can try to challenge a shot at the rim. You need somebody who's a physical presence who you can put on other physical presences. This is something that the Pelicans have not had. Now, let me caveat this here. It would have been wonderful if Zion Williamson would have decided to dedicate himself to defense, but he's not. At this point, he's not. It's clear. But having someone like Collin Murray-Boyles on that team, on this New Orleans Pelicans team, allows them to play a different style of offense that I think can unlock the rest of this roster as well. Instead of being Zion centered, and I know Zion Williamson, as long as he's there, if he's on the court playing, you're going to play to your strengths. It's going to give you a chance to win, period. But having a Collin Murray-Boyles, I can completely see him being able to run actions, dribble handoffs, things at the top of the key, playmaking, facilitating from the top of the key, which are his strengths, to be able to unlock guys like Trey Murphy and Jordan Hawkins and CJ McCollum. His ability to get guys going fluidly in the offense, moving around, cutting hard because they know that someone is looking for them, right? I think is going to be another factor to unlocking that offense. And unlike when New Orleans is running everything through Zion, and rightly so, he's a phenomenal talent, but you just can't rely upon him. You can't rely upon him to consistently be there, and because you can't, you need to have a backup. And I don't think they've ever really truly had a backup plan for Zion. Well, Collin Murray-Boyles can be just that. I think he can be, as he's been compared to Paul Millsap, Aaron Gordon, Draymond Green, even Thaddeus Young. He could be the type of guy that you give the ball to at the top of the key, and you know that he's going to get other guys involved. He's going to move the ball around. He's going to hit the backdoor cut. He's going to be able to make the opposite wing skip, hit the guy in the corner, or because he does have more offensive pop than a Draymond Green, he can get downhill and get to the rim. He's going to have the ability uh, to really put pressure on the defense to figure out where they're going. Similarly, when you look at how the Detroit Pistons utilized, um, oh shit, Jalen Duren, and how he was able to either run dribble handoffs, pick and rolls, and he was able to attack the rim. That's a rare quality. Most guys who are really good facilitators from the front court position are not necessarily great at getting downhill. But when you have that guy, it creates quite an opportunity to have a uh, offensive fulcrum that you're able to lean all the other talents on because they're going to be someone who makes people better by making the right decisions, by making the reads, by seeing guys who are coming open off of cuts, off of screens, um, and who are just moving and staying in motion. Now, that form of offense is extremely effective, especially in the playoffs when you have guys that many times are just standing around. And I know that the defensive intensity in the playoffs, guys are a little bit more tired, but when you can get easy points from quality ball movement and player movement on the offensive end, shout out Indiana Pacers, it allows you to be able uh, to not lean as heavily on individual talent, which is precisely where the New Orleans Pelicans are. That they're not in a position to rely upon individual talent because Zion Williamson most of the time is not there. Brandon Ingram has now been traded. DeJounte Murray is going to be out all next season. I believe he's got the Achilles, if I'm correct, Achilles tendon, right? Ruptured Achilles tendon. So it's like you're going to be depending upon the CJ McCollums, the Jordan Hawkins, um, the Jose Alvarado, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Eves Missy, Kelly Olynyk. You're going to be depending upon these guys. And I think what unlocks them is someone who's able to have some versatility in the front court. Now, Zion should be hopefully healthy once again going into next season. Hopefully, he's healthy now and he's getting his body in shape. I still am not a believer until I see him down to 250 pounds. But having Collin Murray Boyles behind him makes them a little interesting. Now, one thing that I'll also give you this is I think he's somebody who can push Zion. I think he's someone who can push Zion. I think he could be the type of player where the head coach for New Orleans, I forget my man's name, Green. Um, what's his name again? I always forget his name. Either way, I think he's going to be able to play Colin Murray Boyles significant minutes, especially because most of the time you have Zion under minutes restriction. But you have another component, a piece who can come in off the bench, who can give you great defense. Now, first off, when you bring defense to that level off the bench, along with guys like uh, Jose Alvarado, you're looking at guys like potentially Herb Jones, who might end up coming off the bench. I wouldn't be shocked. You have like a CJ McCollum, Jordan Hawkins, Trey Murphy III, but you probably want some more defense. So, who knows? But when you bring in other quality defenders off the bench who also give you offensive skill, it allows you to amplify and maintain what your current starters are doing. And so I fully expect that Colin Murray-Boyles is somebody that the New Orleans Pelicans should be like locked in on. Like I also like guys like Jeremiah Fears for them. I think they need a point guard. CJ McCollum is getting long in the tooth. Uh, doesn't quite have that same pop. Jose Alvarado is nice, but doesn't look like a full-time starter. I think Jeremiah Fears can be the type of player who can get downhill and give you that component that Zion Williamson does, and be able to get paint touches and collapse the defense consistently. But even though then he would take a little bit more time to develop and learn the game, which I think is a great situation for him to learn. CJ McCollum is a great mentor. And then I think having someone like Jose Alvarado there, kind of like balancing you and not putting too much on you early on, but whom you could still steal minutes from, especially if you start defending. I think that that would be a great situation. But Collin Murray-Boyles, I think he's the best insurance the New Orleans Pelicans could get on a superstar whom you seem to always need to have insurance on. And that's just the reality for the Pelicans. But I'm going to be watching in this draft. I'm going to be doing some more videos on different draft prospects. Uh, if you are enjoying this video, I appreciate you coming through, checking it out. Something a little bit different than what I usually do. And if you want me to take a look at your team in the draft and their off season, let me know. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll potentially do a video on your team. But let me just say this: considering where the New Orleans Pelicans are in terms of their draft, I'm sorry, not draft, but their salary cap, the team salary cap, and where they are in terms of the direction that they're going. Right? Is Zion really going to stay there? Are they going to figure out someplace to move him, get off of that contract? Who are they now building around? Trey Murphy the third moves into that second option, which is really the first option, with Zion out usually half the season and definitely in the playoffs. You got guys like Herb Jones, Jordan Hawkins that you're still trying to figure out who they are. Yves Macy was a revelation that I don't think that they expected. So there's a lot of components for this team that are going to be interesting to see how they navigate this offseason, because I don't necessarily expect them to make big splashes in trades or even signings. They might bring in some veterans, but I think through the draft, they have an opportunity to really change things around. And I think Collin Murray-Boyles is at the center of that. If they can select him, I think he comes in ready to go. A sophomore who averaged, 17 and 8, right? A guy who's a Swiss Army knife on defense, a glue guy on offense who also has scoring pop, who shows a lot of skill with his passing and playmaking and ability to read the court and get downhill with that soft left touch. I think he could be a tremendous pickup for them that can give them the depth that they've been missing in the front court and a little bit more dynamic offensive pop through his skill at the top of the key. But all that's to say is, um, that's who I would be selecting if I'm New Orleans. If I have an opportunity to get him, that's the guy because he's a winner. He just is. His game speaks winner. His game through and through. Think about the guys that I mentioned that he has a similar prototype to, right? Whether it's at the worst case scenario, Thaddeus Young, best case scenario, you got guys like Aaron Gordon, Paul Millsap, Draymond Green, and some sort of collection of all three. He's never going to become the lights out shooter that everybody seems to want everybody to be in order to attribute value to them. But I think he does have a tremendous amount of skill, great motor, plays with a lot of heart. He's got good physical intangibles in terms of his lateral mobility, low center of gravity. He's got a strong base to defend one on one, really good help defender who has the ability to rebound, defend at the rim, and play make facilitate. He is the type of talent that helps you to reshape the culture of your team. That you say, what we're about is winning. And what helps us to win are doing the little things, the dirty things, the things that most guys aren't necessarily trying to do. And Collin Murray-Boyles is going to be able to come in and do it in spades. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. And I'm going to get at y'all next time. Peace.